Here's a real high-class bout. Now go!
Hey everybody, welcome to a new series I'm doing around the games we stream during our variety sessions on Twitch called The Takeaway. The core of The Takeaway is to give a quick overview of a game, followed by one or two big key points that I think the developers nailed with their game, and how I think this can be a lesson learned going forward for the game industry. My goal with this series is to have a bunch of these takeaways show elements of the games that we love, and we see a lot of other people that complain about the things we hate in video games. We hate microtransactions, we hate racism and sexism playing a role, we hate our games being spread across tons of different digital stores, so on, so forth. While I think it's good to have that general compass of what we don't like in games, I think it's just as important, if not more important, to recall what has worked in games new and old to make note of it. If even one game developer sees these videos and applies what we communicate into the work that they do, then this series will be a success. As well, I'll make sure to write up a key takeaway post so it can be made into something for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, that can be attached to this video. That way people can get a quick cliff note of what I'll be talking about in this video, and that way I can kind of use this series to spread across all the different social medias. At least that's the goal. So, the first one is going to be the most recent game we played on stream, Cuphead. If you've never seen Cuphead before, it's a 2D side-scrolling run-and-gun shooter. You play as either Cuphead, Mugman, or soon-to-be Miss Chalice in an upcoming DLC, as you fight a lot of bosses in order to repay a gambling debt made with the devil. My favorite way to describe a video game is with the baby combination is what I call it, where the game is basically if Hollow Knight, Metal Slug, and 1930s Disney animations had a baby together. You see where I'm going with this, the concept? The shooting is very akin to Metal Slug, the movement will be familiar to anyone playing Hollow Knight, and the whole thing just looks so classically retro 1930s Disney animation, and more just 30s animation in general, and God, I love it. What's interesting about this concept too is that the game is actually pretty darn difficult and in a good way. In the same way games like Dark Souls or Sekiro Shadows Die Twice reward you for overcoming struggles. You go in and immediately get slapped by a boss, but then you start, at time after time, you start learning a little bit by little bit on what you're doing wrong, how your mechanics can improve, understanding the patterns of your enemies, and then eventually overcoming them and winning, which, whenever you do eventually win, it is complete euphoria. However, what's different about Cuphead, when you're getting your pride handed to you by, this imagery, the way that this game looks, it's just so charming. Even when I streamed it, I was upset about something, but none of it was directed at the game, because I can't get mad at a game that looks like this. I mean, just look at it. It's so charming. But the big takeaway I see from the game is this. Cuphead is the epitome of experimenting with what's new and old and combining them into something excellent. When I look at what's new, I look at the difficulty curve. The emphasis that they have on bosses, what we've also seen from, again, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro. I know I'm mentioning a lot of From Software games, but there is definitely that trend that they started. And Cuphead is pretty much entirely bosses. As well as then there's mild RPG elements where you get to choose and pick your extra abilities, extra weapons, and extra super abilities to cater more to your playstyle, as well as then having better counters for particular bosses in certain scenarios. But then you've got the art style, the shooting mechanics from back in the day, like bullet hells, again, like Metal Slug, and the complete cartoon nature of the game. How so many of our games these days try to go for a sense of hyper-realism, or games try and do realism with a different art style. This game chooses to be way out there, you're an anthropomorphic cup buying items from a pig with an eye patch and snapping your fingers at what seems to be a cracked out carrot. This game is very different and everything in this world is so cartoony and out there. But that's just how we had back in the day. You know, some of our biggest gaming icons are a plumber that would smash mushrooms, a bandicoot that eats a whole bunch of peaches, and a hedgehog that loves jewelry. I would like to see more of these sort of cartoony, semi for kids, but adults love it too, type of very animated characters have a stronger forefront than they do in a modern day and age, where most of our iconic characters that are coming from, say, like the last 10 years are more very realistic. I love the sense of having both worlds. Have something cartoony, have something realistic, and just having both of them exist at the same time. I would love to see more developers keep applying this concept of combining new and old elements together. Like, if they keep intuitively asking themselves, like, what's something we loved so much in older games? What don't we see in modern games? And how can we bring some of these elements back in a new age of gaming? The biggest example that I see of an older concept is like free-for-all multiplayer. And putting it in modern games, and this is during a time whenever team-based multiplayer games like League of Legends or Smite are really taking over, or even then, we still had a huge surge of team-based military first-person shooters like Call of Duty and Battlefield. And you bring in this free-for-all multiplayer sense and reinvent it, and this is where we see the rise of battle royales. Cuphead is an example of what could be a resurgence of that old school shooting mechanic that reminds me so much of like Metal Slug and a lot of these bullet hell games of yesteryear. I would like to see more dips into what's old and combining them with what's new and bringing that combination into the limelight, and there are some very, very refreshing concepts that can be made from that. Like, a completely different example of something that I would want to see is like, I love the concept of older MMOs like Guild Wars and EverQuest and a lot of how they play, but continue to make more modern games and mechanics like what we see from a game like Gears of War or like Call of Duty first-person shooters. And if they could somehow not turn that into a looter shooter, if that's possible. But that's an opportunity, and that's just an idea that I'm spitballing out there. But you see what I mean about combining the old and the new? I would really like to see that concept continue to be applied. And that is my takeaway on Cuphead. I'm curious to know what you guys think of the series. If you guys enjoy me making these sort of like semi-reviews, but more just looking at the biggest thing that I take away from a particular game and just talk about that for a little bit. As well as then, what did you guys think of Cuphead overall? If you haven't played it, I'll have links for it in the description on where you can get it. If you wanted to watch us play through these variety games for the takeaway, we stream them on Twitch, usually on Sundays at about 6 p.m. Eastern time. Or I'll have the videos on demand. They'll be archived on Twitch, like in our entire playthroughs, if you just wanted to watch them at your leisure and you didn't have to worry about me being live. As well, of course, if you enjoyed this video, do the like, sub, bell, the normal YouTube stuff, and you enjoyed this. And until next time, stay thirsty, my friends.